Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchel Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, with just some practice news and notes that everybody from the nation needs to see today. So coming up, we'll break down everything that you need to know from minicamp practice today. I'll also break down who I thought was the biggest winner just from talking to some of the people that were at practice. One person in particular I would say would be my biggest winner. I'll also going to break out a new segment that you guys are going to start seeing on every single Raiders show that I do, or at least a majority of them. I'll tell you what that segment is here in a little bit. And at the very end of today's show, just notes on some players who spoke to the media today, just some of the things that I heard from them overall. I will say this, I wanted to be able to get this video out earlier today, but we've been interviewing some people here at Chat Sports. We are growing, and that's a huge, huge shout out to all y'all that helped this shit moving. If you want to stay up to date on all things going on around the Raiders, make sure you subscribe. Minicamp news, I promise you I'm going to keep you up to date. Tomorrow is the final day of Raiders minicamp. All right, so the first thing we'll hit here is Christian Wilkins. Not a practice today again, was the only player from the Raiders that did not practice. He is yet again the only player that has yet to practice for the Silver and Black. I know it's frustrating for a lot of fans out there just because he's one of the highest paid players on our team, one of the highest paid players in the NFL. He's dealing with his own injury. Don't expect him out there tomorrow. I would say he's going to be back probably right before training camp. That's the hope. But the other side of that coin is a good thing because you got all of the other Raiders players out there participating, even, for some guys that are looking for contract extensions, like a Jakobi Meyers, like a Kolton Miller. I got two notes today from Pegues and Tonka Hemingway. One of the notes was that they continue to surprise some people because of just how athletic that they both are. Adam Butler kind of jokingly said, how much that those guys are always asking questions, which I could have, saved for a little bit later on today's show. But, that's just the type of dudes that Pegues, Tonka Hemingway, and honestly, all these Raiders rookies are. They're sponges. They want to learn, and they're not afraid to ask a lot of questions, which, Butler wasn't the first player that I've heard that from. I did see that Lucky Fotu has been mainly working as the nose tackle, and that's something that I've got notes on the past 2 days where, with Christian Wilkins being out, they want some of these defensive tackles to step up. Adam Butler has been mainly the 3 tech, which, again, really shouldn't surprise anybody out there. But one of the other things that I saw that I loved today was Pete Carroll. He's walking around, and he's super hyped up. And, I don't care who you are. You've heard it from players. You heard it from coaches, media members. I'm telling you about it. The atmosphere, the building in general is so much different with Pete. And there was a video today of him, walking over to Tonka Hemingway and, dropping the people's elbow on him. That's the type of dude that you want in June to fire you up. Because if Pete Carroll at 73 is bringing that type of energy in June, holy shit, man. I can't wait to see what type of energy he's going to be bringing a little bit later on in this year. But, Raiders practice is just different. And I want to give a huge, huge shout out to defensive assistant Rowan. He was shirtless today, acting like an absolute fool, getting these players hyped up before practice started. And, you see these guys going through warm-ups, and it just takes me back to the story of Pete Carroll, dapping up DK Metcalf when Metcalf was getting drafted, walked into the Seattle room, and Pete took his shirt off because Metcalf had his shirt off. I want coaches from Pete Carroll all the way down to freaking Rip Rowan here who gives a shit about this team and is willing to make things fun. If you make things fun in June, it's going to be a lot more fun during the regular season. At least I hope so. Next note that I got here is from Cody Lindenberg. When I say from, I'm not getting it from Cody himself. I'm getting it from my people that are at Raiders practice. So my notes here on Cody Lindenberg are he is starting to really make a name for himself. And when you talk about the linebacker room, we really look at Landon Roberts and Devin White. Those are your top 2 linebackers on this squad, and I don't really think anybody would disagree with that. Though, there's been a lot of conversation of who's going to be that linebacker 3. I released a video right before my wedding last week, which was around some of the top minicamp battles that I was looking for, and linebacker 3 was one of those spots. Was it going to be Amari Gaynor? Was it going to be Tommy Eichenberg? Kind of sounds like it's Cody Lindenberg. And I'll also say this. You got to think about the positions that a guy like Amari Gaynor is going to play compared to Lindenberg, where I think a lot of people, including myself, was thinking that Eichenberg would be over Lindenberg. But right now, the second Mike linebacker for the Las Vegas Raiders, the second middle linebacker, it's been Cody Lindenberg behind Landon Roberts, which is, a big step for somebody who was drafted in the 7th round. But I think, honestly, the bigger thing that I look for is they got a green dot on him. And when you give a young player, a rookie, a green dot, you want to know that he can handle that responsibility. Because if Landon Roberts goes down, sounds like it's going to be Cody Lindenberg. He's going to go in there, he's going to step in, and he's going to be getting a lot of the calls. Like, when the Raiders drafted a lot of the players that they did, they drafted guys with some of those leadership qualities. 9 out of the 11 players that the Raiders drafted wore a C on their chest at least one game in college. Cody Lindenberg was a captain. His family, they DM me from time to time. His dad is super involved in his life and is really excited about the Raiders, no doubt about it. But Cody Lindenberg, I would say actually right now is probably the linebacker 3 over Amari Gaynor and over Tommy Eichenberg. But that's more just because he's the guy right behind Landon Roberts. We'll see if Devin White comes off the field, if Lindenberg would be the guy in there. I don't know if that's the combination that they would go with, but I would say linebacker 3 right now is probably Cody Lindenberg behind Landon Roberts, again, because of that green dot, because of him playing Mike. Really interesting note here, Thayer Munford has been getting some work at guard. Today they were really using him at left guard, which, yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of interesting, and it makes me really happy because I think for anybody that's watched this show, for a long time, I've always said I think Thayer Munford's more of a guard, and left guard has been the position that I would say right now on the offensive line is the biggest question mark, where Kolton Miller's your left tackle, JPJ center, right guard's Alex Kappa. Sounds like that's how it's going to be. There's always going to be competition, but if the season started today, Kappa's going to be your right guard. Right tackle will be DJ Glaze. So going into camp, we heard a lot about left guard. Left guard battle between Jordan Meredith. Left guard battle between Dylan Parham. I'm wondering if Thayer Munford is starting to earn a little bit of a name for himself at that spot, because left guard was always the position that I wanted Thayer to play, and the fact that they're starting to use him there, I think just goes to show that this is an open battle. Let's talk about Dont'e Thornton Jr., shall we? And I'll tell you what, man, this guy has been better than I ever could imagine, and that's the best way that I could put it. He worked with the 1s and 2s today, but he's been probably predominantly working, with the 1s. And one of the other top battles that I was talking about was that wide receiver 2 battle. I actually think, and I mean this, that I think Thornton right now might have an extra step on Jack Besh just right now of where they're at, which I never would have thought to say. But if I was a Raiders fan, I would say this to anybody that is out there. The wide receiver 2 battle is between Dont'e Thornton Jr., Tre Tucker, and Jack Besh. Predominantly, Thornton and Tucker have been working on the outsides, and Jakobi Meyers has been working in the slot, which we'll talk about this Raiders offense here in just a little bit. But Besh has been working more with the 2s. And I really thought that Besh was going to get more work with the 1s, and I almost wonder if it's the type of offense that the Raiders might try to run. And, if you got a guy that's sure-handed than Brock Bowers, you got another guy they're using a lot, Michael Mayer. We'll talk about him in a little bit. And then, you get a sure-handed guy in Jakobi Meyers. What's the next thing that you want? I kind of want a field stretcher. I want someone that takes the top off of a defense, and that's what Tre Tucker and Dont'e Thornton Jr. have been doing. That way you free up a little bit of running lanes there for Ashton Jeanty. I will say he did drop a touchdown today, Thornton, which probably one of the only negative notes that I've heard about him during OTAs, during minicamp, during rookie minicamp. And drops were a little bit of an issue for him at Tennessee. Concentration issues were something that, a few scouts brought up to us at Chat Sports when we were at the NFL Combine around Thornton, which... So for him to have that struggle, I'll be really curious to see how he bounces back tomorrow. And I shouldn't even say struggle. He really didn't even struggle today. Shit, man, you got to get open for the Geno to be able to throw you the ball. And he's getting open. His route tree is becoming a lot more polished, which you love to see. But him and Tre Tucker are working on the outside. Jakobi's been working in the slot. And Jack Besh has been working more with the 2s than the 1s. So something just to talk about. But one of the things that I love to do on these shows, and I know Chugs isn't here, he's actually on vacation. He'll be out all week, which is one of the reasons why I'm filming this style of show today. But this also gives me the ability, to kind of do a longer show, a more open-ended show for a lot of the OGs that are watching this on June 11th. My question is, this is going to be the pinned comment here on today's show. So you're about to get hit with the YouTube ad break. While that ad is playing, I want you to scroll on down and give me your honest answer. Out of these 3 wide receivers, who's going to make the biggest impact on the Raiders this season? Impact. I'm not saying catches. I'm not saying yards. Biggest impact on the Raiders. Tre Tucker, Jack Besh, or Dont'e Thornton Jr.? My answer is going to be coming up right here after this YouTube ad break. I'm still going to sit up here and go that I believe it's Jack Besh, which might be a little bit of a far-fetched call just because I think of the way that he blocks and the way that he operates. But I'll tell you this, I think Dont'e Thornton Jr. could be one of the biggest sleepers out there. And if you're somebody that's in a fantasy football league, if you're somebody that's in a dynasty league, go out and get a guy that's 4.3, that runs a 4.3, 540. And in terms of the NFL Combine, 6'4 receivers that have run 4.3s. I did a show on this before. DK Metcalf, Calvin Johnson, Dont'e Thornton Jr. You know, he is a great decoy on plays that they don't use him. And if he is actually, you know, being able to be that outside receiver that we've been getting really excited about, watch out, dude, because we could have another fourth-round gem, somebody like a Max Crosby, which I don't say that lightly, and I think people know that. People know that I don't say those type of things lightly. Max is my dude, but Dont'e Thornton Jr. has been turning heads, and you guys know it as well, right? I mean, that's all people are talking about right now. All right, let's go to the next note here that I have. It's on Geno Smith. Was very accurate today and has shown his accuracy throughout the entire offseason. Clearly quarterback number one. Aiden, I would say, is clearly quarterback number two. And then you got Carter Bradley and Cam Miller working a lot together, just trading reps. I think Bradley, confidently I could say, is the quarterback four. Cam Miller, though, is really impressing a lot of people. I know there's been some speculation about Miller, you know, kind of surpassing Aiden O'Connell. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. Tom Brady is obviously very high on Cam Miller, but to me, based on the reports that I've seen, based on the people that I've talked to, I would say that AOC is still quarterback number two, and that probably will not change. Again, Pete, you never know, but I would say that probably does not change. Next thing that I saw here was he did hit Michael Mayer for a touchdown. You got to love seeing that. Jakobi Meyers had a touchdown, and I was told by somebody there, literally a perfect pass, dropped it right exactly where it needed to be. It was good coverage by the Raiders. Just Geno had a better ball. Though Smith did have 2 interceptions today. One was a tip ball. Darnay Holmes ended up coming down with that one. And then Mad Max, like literally at the end of practice, did have a pick 6. When Max was, you know, asked about it, he said he knew it was coming. So I don't know if Max meant that as like he knew the play was coming because a coach told him this is what's going to happen, or if there was something that Chip Kelly and the offense did that kind of tipped the hand to Mad Max. But I would say despite Geno having those 2 picks today, the offense was better than the defense. Geno looked really, really solid. And, you know, I think for what you need to see out of Geno, I want somebody that's a leader. This is clearly his team. I want somebody that's learning how to understand what the Chip Kelly offense is. From people that I talked to, Geno looks really good. I've seen a few people on social media say that Geno's been struggling. Based on the people that I talked to and a few of the players that I've talked to about Geno, I don't get the sense at all that he's struggling. So just keep that in mind. Ashton Jeanty really been putting in a lot of work together as a receiver, and the Raiders are really pushing him to be not only a pass-catching running back, they want him to be a 3-down back. Like, legitimately, you know, Zamir White, he's actually lost a little bit of weight. I heard from one of the Raiders players, Zamir is slimmed down a little bit. He wants to be a little bit quicker, which I think is actually what he needs to do to be able to fit in this Chip Kelly style of offense if his number is called. Because, yes, Raheem Mostert is in the mix who's going to catch the football, but I literally think the Raiders want to use Ashton Jeanty as much as humanly possible, and I don't think that that's a bad idea at all. He continues to work on his pass blocking. I was told by one of the people there at practice, not today, I shouldn't say I was told this today, I was just told this right before my wedding, that you can tell Jeanty is just really, really working on being a 3-down back, and that shouldn't surprise anybody because he was drafted number 6 overall, and Jeanty, shit, man, he probably wants to be that 3-down back. Because, again, he's as humble as they come, he's as hardworking as they come, and it's really a good feeling to know that I feel like we got another Max Crosby on our hands where you're looking at somebody, you're going, he's just a sicko, and he loves it. And that's what you want out of your young guys. Also, something that I thought was really interesting today that I got a note on was the Raiders, there was a joke that Tom McMahon made yesterday, and one of the guys that I usually talk to all the time, I was like, you know, what's up with, you know, McMahon saying that Jeanty could potentially working on some kickoffs? Because when he said it, I kind of like rolled my eyes a little bit, didn't really pay too much attention to it. I was also getting ready to go live on our show yesterday. So when I asked my guy today about it, he was like, no, like they might actually use him at kick return. So that's very interesting to me, you know, and when you consider these new kickoff return rules, you've kind of heard McMahon say it like, you know, it's a lot more closer to like the way that teams run the football. And, you know, you get a lot of guys where, you know, college, you know, you're allowed to just start running right away. Now it's a little bit different and you have to learn to adapt to that. But if the Raiders, and what it sounds like, they're really kickoff to them is almost viewed as more of like a running game. Why not put Jeanty out there? I don't know how I feel about it, and if you could tell me that it's Madden and we could turn injuries off, shit, man, let's put the ball in Jeanty's hands as much as humanly possible. But at the same time, it's interesting to me, and I don't know how many times they're going to do it, but the fact that they are talking about it and it's serious conversations, Jeanty could be doing some kickoff return duties. That's really, really fun to me. Let's talk about Kolton Miller, and nothing really that Kolton did or said today. I reached out to someone from Miller's camp. I'll be honest, I haven't heard back for an update. I'll try to give you guys an update tomorrow. Reminder, I go live at 4 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. But I saw something from Vincent Bonsignor, and he said that the Raiders and Kolton Miller, quote, aren't close. And he was in terms of talking about a contract extension. I know the last time that I talked to Kolton, he kind of made it seem like, and it's kind of been the way that, Miller has made it seem this whole offseason of, yes, I want a contract extension, but I also want this team and this regime to know that I want to be a Raider. He said it yesterday that he wants to be a Raider for life. And I know that Vinny reported that they aren't close. I don't know if it's like they're not close because the numbers are very different. Again, I'm just basing it off of my conversations that I've had with Kolton and I've had with Kolton's team. To me, it just sounds like it's not a priority. Not that Kolton's not a priority, but the Raiders right now are focused on mandatory minicamp, and they know that they have an outstanding human being in Kolton Miller, just like they know they have an outstanding human being in Jakobi Meyers that are going to do exactly what they're going to do because they are pros, and they're going, well, if they're showing up now, like, we don't need to worry about it now. We'll worry about it before training camp, where I know when I originally started talking about these Kolton Miller rumors, which happened before the draft, one of the things that I said was I think that a deal could get done before mandatory minicamp. I think that the Raiders are just so confident in the type of human being that Kolton Miller is that it's not a pressing issue because Miller's also not making it a pressing issue. But I think that also goes to speak volumes of how much these players believe in what is being taught this season by Pete Carroll, because you got a lot of other guys that are sitting out. You got a lot of other teams that, I want this contract, I want this contract. Kolton Miller and Jakobi Meyers could easily do those exact same things, knowing that the Raiders just went out and traded for Geno Smith. Quite frankly, they'd be the two easiest guys to sit up there and go, oh, hey, I want this because you did that. They're putting the team first, and I think you have to respect that. So if you see a report that the Raiders and Kolton Miller aren't close, I don't think I would look at that as a money thing. I would look at it as a priority thing, and I can't really blame the Raiders because, again, Kolton's out there when it wasn't mandatory. So next things here that we're going to talk about is Eric Stokes, Darien Porter. They have been working with the ones. I would say if a season started today, you're going to get Stokes and Darien Porter out there. Now, I don't know how much that has to do with just because Jakorian's kind of getting back here. He talked about a lot yesterday. It's the first time that both of his shoulders have been healthy, probably since college. And, he said basically like his shoulder would pop out multiple times in a game, and you just got to play through it. But Stokes, Darien Porter are predominantly working with the ones, though Jakorian still gets some run here and there. I'm really curious to see if they try to do something different with Jakorian, like if they try to put him in the nickel, let him be just a really athletic player where they just have him roam around a little bit. I don't think it's a bad role at all, honestly, for Jakorian. And, it was one of the ways that Patrick Graham used to always talk about using Nate Hobbs. They used to call him like a Swiss Army knife. They used to love being able to line him up and do some of these different things. If they're this confident in Stokes, who's looked really good, Darien Porter, who's also looked really good, Jakorian, I think he played really well last year on the outside, but then again, if I was Jakorian, I would want to be a starter, and I would want to get an opportunity to play with Pete Carroll, and he loves how hands-on Pete Carroll is with all the corners, and especially himself. Player here, Lonnie Johnson Jr., has been predominantly the third safety behind Jeremy Chin, behind Isaiah Pola-Mao. I know I've talked about Thomas Harper in the past. He's been getting a lot of work at nickel, though, again, I heard today Darnay looked pretty damn good today. But for Lonnie Johnson Jr., this was somebody that I thought was going to be mainly in the special teams and once in a while a little bit of safety. Jeremy Chin's the real deal. He has been by far the best safety on this squad. I've heard some good stuff about Isaiah Pola-Mao. They like him and still got to, he's got to learn it a little bit more. He's still learning a new position, learning a new defense, and you can kind of see those learning trends. One of the Raiders players told me this. Again, this is right before my wedding, so I don't remember exactly what day it was, but when you're talking about bringing in a player like Isaiah Pola-Mao, they didn't say his name. The actually comparison they gave me was Trevon Merrick, where, Merrick spoke a lot last season about him developing and how, first year as a rookie, you're going through a lot, and you got to learn a new system. And instead of going out there thinking and reacting, it's a lot easier when you can just go out there and react. I think for Pola-Mao right now, he's doing a little bit of thinking, and he's not quick to react quite yet, but there's still a lot of time. We're only in June, and he's been a player that has shown he can get better and better and better. But I hope that comparison made sense, because that was something that I was told a few weeks ago. Before I get into the biggest winner at practice today, I do want to remind people one more time, and I've said this before on our live shows, if you want to do a fantasy football league with me and some other people from the Raiders Report, you have a few different ways to get in. If you're the MVP for the month of June, which right now belongs to Fabian Moreno, you're going to get an automatic entry. But if you just want a chance to get in by doing a raffle, you can do a $5 super chat when I'm live. And again, I'll be live tomorrow. I'll also be live on Friday for our Raiders Chiefs Madden stream. Be on the lookout for that. But you can also send in a $5 super thanks. We'll do a raffle at the very, very end of the month, and then we'll put people in. But it's going to be a 12-team league. I'm going to be in it. So there's going to be 11 other people that will have an opportunity to go up against me in a season-long fantasy football league. So if you want that, keep it in mind, and good luck to you. All right, let's talk about the biggest winner today at practice. And can anybody guess? How about that? Any guesses out there for the biggest winner? And I say this because you could look at this at two different ways, and that's kind of how I'm going to look at it. But to me, the biggest winner today at practice, and maybe you can make the argument the biggest winner outside of Dont'e Thornton Jr., just from Raiders Minicamp, Michael Mayer. And I say that because he just continues to impress people and continues to impress Chip Kelly. And that's kind of like the important one. He had a beautiful touchdown catch today from Geno Smith. That's a very big one. But the Raiders are clearly trying to see what they got in him. And when I look at, my past notes from years in the past, just especially during minicamp, because, again, you only get 3 days of practice. Or last year, AP gave him only 2 because he gave him the final day off. You got to look at what coaches do. And it kind of reminds me a little bit even last year. I know Dylan Laube, they just wanted to see what they had in him. And that's why they were throwing all this stuff. To me, the Raiders want to see what they got in Michael Mayer. And they're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at him. I loved today that he was able to split 2 defenders. He split 2 safeties, and he went down, went deep. Geno hit him with a touchdown pass, and, that's what you're looking for. I also had a source tell me today, quote, I think teams will be shocked how often we run 2 to 3 tight end sets. So, that could be another thing where you're thinking about, all right, if you're the Raiders, 2-3 tight end sets. You got Ashton Jeanty out there. Maybe you put Dont'e Thornton Jr. or Tre Tucker, somebody who's a field stretcher where you have to respect it. Or maybe you just put, Jakobi out there who's a good blocker. Jack Besh who's a good blocker. But for the Raiders, for them to want to run 2 to 3 tight end sets, I think it's because they just want to be this physical football team and they want to be a very balanced team. But with going with 2 to 3, Brock is obviously your number 1. Michael's going to be your number 2. But the fact that the Raiders are trying to figure out how to use Mayer, I think just really shows that he is in the cards. He is in the playbook. And I think it's also why they're not overly panicking on, going out and getting a veteran wide receiver. They like the receivers that they have. They've been showing out. And I do think Michael Mayer is going to be a big part of the offense. What else do I have here? Ian Thomas, I was told today, is still mainly the tight end 3. Tight end 4 battle is between Qadir Ishmael, Carter Runyon, Pat Conroy. So Runyon and Conroy are 2 UDFAs. Ishmael was signed right after the NFL draft. He's a little bit longer, lankier, skinnier tight end overall prospect, where Runyon's 6'4", Conroy 6'2", both very good athletes, and Ishmael's about 6'6", but he's a little bit more slender. Runyon and Conroy, I think, provide a little bit more of the pop. But overall, I ever had the Raiders keeping only 3 tight ends on a lot of my 53-man roster videos that I've done. I might switch that up because, again, the source that I talked to today was very clear to me that 2 to 3 tight end sets are going to be something that the Raiders work with. Now, does that mean they're only going to keep 3 tight ends and, they're going to use, Jack Besh as a blocker? So I don't know exactly, but to me, if you're planning on putting 3 tight ends on a field, that probably means that you're going to keep a 4 tight end. So who exactly is that? I don't know. If you were to tell me who I would keep to be the 4 tight end, to be honest with you, I might keep Pat Conroy, and it's because he tested out as the 99th percentile as athletes. at the NFL Combine. He's also a part fullback tight end. So if I want to be able to do a little bit of power and I want to be able to block, you could put Conway in there to block, but he can also line up as kind of like an H-back, like a Kyle Juszczyk, if you will, at the tight end position. But today, Michael Mayer, biggest winner, and it's because the Raiders are trying to use him. And when he got his name called today, he ended up coming down with a touchdown. So Michael Mayer, for the Michael Mayer fans out there, Notre Dame guys, big winner today. All right, coming up, we're going to get my thoughts on some of the players that spoke, to the media today. I'll try to run through this quickly, but I did promise y'all a brand new segment that I'm going to start doing, and this is just a shout out to the great Tuna, Brandon Jasper. He used to always do top 5, so we're going to call it Tuna's Top 5. And essentially what is going to happen is I'm going to present you guys with a question. Today's question is, what is your favorite board game? And all I want y'all to do is give me your top 5 favorite board games down below in the comments. And throughout the entirety of, my future shows going forward, I'll take some of the answers that I've seen, put them up on screen the same way that I do Noti Gang. So to me, top 5 favorite board games. I don't have these ranked in any particular order. It is Monopoly, Clue, Life, Trouble, Candyland. Those are my top 5. Shout out to the great Brandon Jasper. All right, so the people that spoke to the media today, Devin White, Isaiah Pola-Mao, Adam Butler, Tyree Wilson. Devin White made it very clear that the reason why he came to the Raiders was because of his relationship with John Spytek. But I think it's also because the Raiders kind of made it seem like to him, like, hey, you're going to have an opportunity to go out there and start, which is what Devin White wants to do. And he wants to get his resurgence back for his career, which is, I think, one of the reasons why John Spytek said the word resurgence in terms of Devin White earlier this offseason. Isaiah Pola-Mao, a very soft-spoken guy overall. I think he's just really excited for the opportunity to be a starting safety in the NFL. Really spoke today about just, how he's got to learn a new position, in a sense, learn a new scheme, but really thinks that Patrick Graham is one of the best in the biz to go out there and do it. Adam Butler, I would say the biggest thing that Butler said today, outside of the, him like kind of poking fun at the rookies always asking questions, was that the reason why he missed practice, a few days ago for OTAs was because his wife is getting ready to have a baby. And I can remember, I want to say this past year, Butler also recently, did Butler get married? Now I'm second guessing myself. But it was not injury related. I know there was a lot of like, oh man, it was an undisclosed reason why he missed. He was missing because his wife was getting ready to have another baby. So totally understandable there. And then Tyree Wilson. Wilson said that he's like really feels like his foot is healthy for the first time, and he felt like he left a lot out there on the field, which that, to me, when Tyree said that, shows me that he's listening and he's really trying to like put his game to that next level. He's working on his cardio. He wants to be more versatile. He wants to be able to work inside and out. I did message Tyree, so I'll probably have something to be able to share with you guys tomorrow on the Raiders Report. But, for Wilson, he said that he felt like he left a lot out there on the field, which the reason why I think that's important is because Rob Leonard also said the exact same thing a few weeks ago, where he was like, when you really watch Tyree Wilson's tape, you can tell like, oh, he left some plays out there, left some sacks out there, maybe because the motor wasn't 100% there, or maybe because he didn't trust his foot 100% there. I'll be really curious to see the type of year that Tyree Wilson has, because I think it's going to be a major breakout type of season. All right, y'all, I'm getting ready to hop on out here. A little bit longer of a show, but that's what happens when I don't got chugs. So appreciate everyone for tuning in. Again, friendly reminder, I will be live tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, and then I'll be live again on Friday for Chiefs Madden Simulation. Week 7. Make sure you guys are ready for tomorrow. It'll be the final day of Raiders minicamp news, notes. I'll also probably break down some of my biggest winners and losers that I've gotten, so be on the lookout for that. But today, Raiders practice was good. I think the offense did a little bit better. The biggest winner from today, though, I would say Michael Mayer, which I think makes a lot of Raiders fans very happy. If you're looking for more content around the silver and black, don't be afraid. Click that subscribe button right here. I promise you, I got you covered. If you're looking for even more videos, you can click this bad boy right over there. Or if you want even more, where am I at? You can click this one right here. Appreciate everyone who always makes it this far in the video. And if you're looking for Raiders content, I promise you, I'm your guy. I got you covered.